I opened up my check and I started crying because it was like more than half the check was going to go to parking tickets.
Oh no.
What am I doing? Is this worth it? Am I really making a difference in my own life? That part didn't just happen. The part that just kind of happened was being an employer. I love seeing the employees happy. I love seeing them cared for. And then having to be put in a bad guy.
Oh, you're absolutely the
right?
bad guy. Yeah.
Feels really isolating. But I think about Peter taking that step out of the boat.
Yep.
And sometimes that's what leadership is.
Yeah.
It's taking that step out when no one else does. Welcome to Making Progress, a podcast where we discuss and discover what it means to find success in the journey of making change. I'm your host, Myra Reneé.
What happens when you go from solo practitioner to CEO of a multi-million-dollar business with over 60 employees in just a few years? Today, we're talking with our host, Myra Reneé, who built the largest Black-owned mental health clinic in the state of Wisconsin. Her story includes entrepreneurship, parking tickets, and firing an entire department. I'm Isaiah Obi, and on this episode of Making Progress, we're exploring the messy reality of building something bigger than yourself. Let's dive in.
And I were talking this morning, and we were just trying to figure out and just think back of like where we met you and how long we've known you. So we've known you for a few years. We met you in January of 2016. And a lot has changed since then, actually.
Yes.
So in January of 2016, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it was just you. You were just solo practitioner.
Yes.
You were by yourself. And now, just a few years later, you are the CEO of the largest Black-owned mental health clinic in the state, we believe. Over 60 employees.
Yes.
5 locations. So you went from 1 to a ton. Very quick. Was that on purpose?
Yeah, no, going from 1 to a ton has been, I will say at times has been thrilling, right?
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
To know, one, that we are making a difference in our community. It means that people need our services, right? So you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And then there is some things that have been really hard. Things that people don't see on your way, making that progress of going from 1 to a ton.
Yeah.
It can feel isolating and lonely at times as well.
Yeah. So in January of 2016, did you ever intend to get to
No.
here? What was going through your mind in January of 2016 when you were by yourself?
So I think it was kind of more so in 2015, the fall.
Okay.
And I said, I want to start my own practice.
Wow.
And I was like, girl, kind of like, we don't have money for that. Like, you're going to be losing money. And I was like, I'm not making no money. So one thing, I just wasn't making money at the practice I was working at.
So at the time you were working at a
nonprofit, and I loved my job. I don't think I had burnout. It wasn't even that. I did, at the time, the location was downtown, so I would get a ton of parking tickets on top of not making money. So I think there was one time...
Downtown tax.
Yeah. One time I opened up my check and I started crying because it was like more than half the check was going to go to parking tickets.
Oh, no.
And it was, I was just like, I just started crying because I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm away from my family and, and is this worth it? Am I really making a difference in my own life?
Yeah.
Like, is this worth it? And so there was other things where I didn't see myself in leadership. And so I'd have these like really great ideas, but I didn't really feel like that was a place I could be used.
Yeah.
And I tested the water of like giving out some of my ideas, and sometimes they'd be used, but then I wouldn't be included in the process. And then other times it just was like, no, you need to just, be back there doing therapy with your folks. And I'd be like, that's fine. That's cool too, because I love doing therapy.
Yeah.
So it's some of those things that really kind of motivated me, to like look into what would it be like to start your own mental health clinic. We're just gonna test it out next year. I'm gonna let my place of employment know I'm gonna stay there. We're going to just do it 2 days out of the week.
Okay.
We're just going to test it out. And so January 2016 rolls, comes in. And I do it Monday and Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm working at the other clinic. I'm working 30 hours a week.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you made that work.
Yeah, I did 10 hours a day. And so I just saw about, I saw about 7 to 8 clients a day. And then the rest of the time was break and my notes.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I got it in. I was a good employee. I tell people all the time, I didn't give people problems. There was no complaints. And so what ended up happening was on that Monday and Friday, I kept getting more and more clients. And I felt like I was at a crossroads where I was like, I need to look at what I want to do. Do I want to do this? Or do I, it still was a leap of faith because I was seeing people at a very reduced payment amount.
Mm-hmm.
And, Monday and Friday, that's very different than then going full time and seeing kind of like, what would this look like?
It's from very part-time to...
Yeah. So what happened was once people kind of heard I was doing my own thing, I was getting clientele from just very more professional type settings. And they were like, I want to see you. A lot of Black and brown women coming in, dealing with racism at work, needing support, understanding faith backgrounds as well. I saw people who were from Jewish background, Christian, like all different backgrounds, Muslim. Yeah. So then that was another clientele. And so then I was like, oh, like my services are really needed. And that's what had me at a crossroads. There's 2 other things that happened around that time.
Okay, wait.
Okay.
I want to get to the 2 other things, but first, so from January to March, you found yourself with more clients than you could take on at the hours that you were doing. Do you think in the city there was a big need, maybe for woman of color who understands faith? Like, did you just hit like a a niche that was needed at the time?
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, like I was always here, right?
Yeah.
And so what the difference was accessibility. Us coming together as Black and brown people and now accepting insurance, because back then I didn't accept insurance, it was just me, has made us so much more accessible to our community.
Yeah.
That they're looking for Black and brown clinicians that may specialize in A, B, and C. Well, that's us. We're right here. And we take almost all insurances. So that accessibility, being visible as well, is really, that part didn't just happen, right? Yeah. I would say the part that just kind of happened was I didn't realize that I was going to end up being an employer.
Yeah. Okay, so
that was not planned.
Okay, so let's go back because I want to hear about the 2 other things that happened.
Yeah. So 2 other things happened where I had to really, and this is like for people like when you are an entrepreneur or when you're doing something, also know that other things may come your way where you might have to make a decision. Do I really want to do this and pursue this? Or are there other options or other avenues I can take?
Yeah.
So one thing was one person had reached out to me and they wanted me to join their practice at that time, their private practice.
Okay.
And if you fast forward today, they actually are employed with Anesis now. But also there was somebody in Madison who I respect so much who had offered me a position in leadership, but it wasn't in the industry of mental health.
Okay. Yeah.
And that all kind of happened right when I was thinking about, should I be pursuing this full time? And so I was really at a crossroads there, and I had to really think about everything because I could have made money a lot easier and a lot faster if I could have been just in leadership somewhere other than taking the entrepreneurship route.
Yeah. Was it a hard decision to make or was it an easy decision to make?
No, it was hard. You talk about faith. I was praying. I called my girlfriend who lived out on the East Coast at the time. I said, she didn't know any of these, the people that I was talking about. So she's always been a really great, prayer partner and person just to call up sometimes because it's like, you don't know none of these people. So let me just get this like unbiased view from somebody who can also pray with me. But I was really just led to just let's just see where this Anissa's thing goes.
Yeah.
And I decided to do that. And I think it was around June or September, sometime around that. Then I had my first county contract. And then 2 people signed on with me as, at that time, independent contractors.
Wow. And you were full-time at that point?
I was full-time.
And how many days were you working in, like, you quit Friday, you get like, you wake up on Monday.
Entrepreneurship.
How many days?
There's no day off.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no day off.
Yeah.
That's what I always laugh at people. They're like, I'm going to start my business so I get more time for myself. And I just go, oh, congratulations. Because especially when you're starting off, I mean, you eat, breathe, sleep, something you're creating and that you're passionate about. I mean, when it's hard to turn off. I would say probably for the first 3 years, I did not tell anyone I was looking to employ anybody.
Interesting.
It was in 2020 when we first started putting ads out that we're hiring.
So 4 years after you've been
over 20
full-time
over 20
on your own. So you had
people.
20 employees
Yes.
before you said, I need employees.
Yes.
So yeah, you're gonna have to tell us how that happened.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know what that magic is, right? And I always tell people, I think it's 2 things, right? Like, one, our community really, there was a need for Black and brown mental health professionals.
100%.
2, I think there's also a need for space, for Black and brown space, for employees to work in.
Yeah.
That I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
And there's something, I can't express the power of being collective and being together. Like, it's great that I started my own practice. People were happy. It's a whole nother level of the community being happy, that there's a communal space for clinicians and community as well.
Yeah.
It's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
So I think people felt safe with me, not just clients, but I think the clinicians felt like this is a safe place. And also, like, I want to make a difference in my community. So I think it was like 2 things. And I didn't plan that. I was just being myself.
Yeah. When did you get your first employee? Or when did you first, was it an employee? Were they just working with you, partnering with you?
So everyone was an independent contractor up until I don't know if it was 2018, 2019-ish. And I had to switch everyone over to employees. And I thought, what was that like? I was so scared. I was like, everyone's going to leave. And some of it is as we were growing, there's all these like ethical and also like state statute type stuff. Like, you're independent contractor, but you're not an independent contractor once I start holding meetings and, saying that we all have to meet during this time. And I know there are a lot of clinics out there that still run everyone as independent contractors. I think legally it's in the gray, which as you're growing and also being a Black business, we don't like gray. We don't like gray. You need to just be you need to be legal. You need to do everything by the book. Yeah. You need to dot every I, cross every T. You can't get away with things other people do. Yeah. And so as I was consulting with my lawyer, she was like, technically, I don't think your employees are independent contractors. I think that they need to be employees. And so I had to switch everyone over, and I thought, everyone's going to leave. We only had 1 person leave.
Out of how many?
Out of 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some differences in your opinion, between CEO and freelancer?
I mean, I think CEO, you're kind of responsible for more than just yourself. I think with freelancer, you're just more responsible for yourself and for maybe, a contract or somebody that has hired you. Yeah. to work on a project or work with something, whether it's a client, another industry, or another company that's hired you, that's kind of your responsibility. And when you're a CEO, you're responsible for others that are under your care, right? You still have like the same things with branding and all of those other responsibilities. But I would say when you start employing people, it's another type of worry and more responsibility. More responsibility. That's the biggest thing. Lots of responsibility.
You just do more. Yeah.
Yeah, you just do more. And you are, and some people may disagree with this, but I feel like you're more of a servant.
Okay.
You are serving people constantly.
Yeah, not just your clients.
Not just your clients. I tell people all the time, client work is so easy compared to what I do now in this role that I'm in now.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little earlier about making space. So you were in a position where you have a whole bunch of people who were essentially freelancing on their own now.
And some working at other clinics.
And some working at other clinics. Yes. So not everybody was freelancing.
Right. Yeah, they were working somewhere.
But the reality is they weren't with you. And then they are now working with you and for you and collaborating and learning from you. Like, what does it mean to make space for people?
Yeah. I think where people can feel seen and heard and be their selves, like their authentic self. And I think so much in American culture, we're like, there's work me, and then there's the house me, or me with my friends, or me, at my church, or those other type of things, right?
Yeah.
What if you could bring your whole self to work, where you don't have to code switch, where you can talk to your colleague in Spanish, or you can talk to someone however you want to, like slang or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just be yourself when you come to work, and that's not considered unprofessional. Now, we're professional. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. We are professional.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is we don't have to explain that.
Yeah.
I would say as we've grown and we've become more diverse, there's more learning now, right? That we even have to do, because, how many times have we taken a diversity course and it's really geared towards white people understanding diversity? It's a whole nother thing when you get black and brown people, because we also have a different way that we've learned how to deal with each other. So now people are coming here to be safe, to be seen, and all those things that I just talked about. But now we got to learn, we got to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So it's been a beautiful journey that we're still on.
Was creating a safe space something that you decided you were like, I'm going to create a safe space for people? Or were you just bringing your full self to work and that you were just kind of doing what you wanted to do?
I think I just bring my full self.
Yeah. And that gives other people the permission.
I think I bring my full self. And I have some pretty strong philosophies and values just within myself.
Yeah.
About curiosity. And I think I really love people's uniqueness and their differences. And because I have my own home growing up has been so diverse. I have had a love of diversity and being with different people. In Minnesota, there's a lot of Ojibwe people, Native American people.
Yeah.
I'm biracial myself. I identify as Black. So I know what it's like, to be with my Black side and then be like, okay, now we're going up to northern Minnesota. Okay, let's go up here and experience this. And I've had to learn to just be with different people like my whole life.
Do you remember the first time that you felt validated? When was the first time that you were like, oh yeah, this I'm doing it. This is it.
Probably that following year.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I've definitely felt it that year. And then in 2017, it was more growth, more people wanted to join. I had like old colleagues that called me up that wanted to join in 2017. And then I don't know like how that happened, but
Yeah.
the growth kept happening. And then I realized I was like, I think we need office support. And then that's when I read, I think we need like a bigger office because we were,
Yeah.
like all those things. That's when I realized like, okay, we're doing this. There's like 7 of us. I think there was like 7
Yeah.
or 8 in the following year. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it was 2017.
Yep.
From everything you're saying, like there's so much that, happened in those first 6 months. And then, after that, it seemed, I feel like every time I see you, which is often, it's more change and more growth and more contracts and more things you got to figure out.
Yeah.
And, how would you rate yourself at like handling change?
Oh, I would say this year we went through some unexpected changes, and that was really, really hard. I think like good change, like change is still stress, right? Even if it's good.
Yep.
And your body doesn't know the difference. I say this to my clients all the time. Like you could have a lot of great things going on. Like maybe you're getting married or you got a new job or you're moving. And those are good things, but it's still stressful.
Yeah.
And your body doesn't know the difference. Like, oh, this is good stress. Like your body is just like, I'm stressed, right? Yeah. So I think for the good changes, right, and the growth and all of that, I started getting used to that. And I was like, okay, this is stressful, but it's almost like it's like a roller coaster, right? Like it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's thrilling. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
And ultimately what you want.
Right. And you almost kind of want to get back on again, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was great. Let's do it again. And like other people are like, I'm good. But this year was like unexpected changes. And it was depressing.
Yeah.
It was really depressing and really sad and very lonely and very isolating.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no matter how many times people are like, oh, I got your back, I'm here for you. You are the CEO. You are the owner, right? Especially when we're not talking about nonprofit. We have a board. When you are running a business, a for-profit business, at the end of the day, it stops with you. And it's a lot of responsibility to feel like you are carrying that weight. And even though you may have a lot of support, like I did have a lot of people that supported me, it still felt lonely and it still felt isolating. And also like, I have to make these decisions. That's on me. No one else can do that for me. No one else can step in. That's really hard.
I'm curious, how many clients did you have when you first started, and how many clients do you have now?
Yeah. Well, I never had a full caseload because I never got to the point where it was just only me for a long time. So every time I would build it up, then we would add some people. And so then, so then it's like you're overseeing that growth.
Yeah.
The administration part of running a business. So I didn't ever have a full caseload. I would say probably maybe around 20 some clients. And then maybe now is around 10 to 12, but I don't see those clients every week. So I have one clinical day, and a lot of people are like, I can't believe that you even still practice. I do it for my sanity.
Yeah.
Because it brings, that's my passion. That's my why.
Yeah.
That, and then also seeing growth in employees has also been my kind of new why. I love to see the way employees have grown, the way that they have been cared for. That makes me feel really, really good.
Yeah.
Right. I would say, and I know you haven't asked me about this, but talking about this year and why it was so isolating and so depressing is I had to let go of a department this year.
Wow. Okay.
And it was our billing department.
Yeah.
And they were not billing. They were not. And me being my why, right? Some of my why is I love seeing the employees happy. I love seeing them cared for. And then having to be kind of put in a bad guy,
Yeah. Oh, no, you're absolutely the
right?
bad guy. Yeah.
Feels really isolating.
Do you think that it's a loaded question? Because I guess it's more of a statement, but
Yep.
I think that there are a lot of people who set goals and their goals require them to lead a team, like their entrepreneurship goals,
Yeah.
and their goals require leading a team, but
Yeah.
they don't actually want to lead a team, if that makes sense. Like you don't want to run a
Right.
business, bro.
Well, and I think people do it because sometimes they think, well, I can do what I want to do, like when I want to do it. But the truth is that you still have deadlines, you still have projects, you still answer to someone.
You have more to
right?
do.
You have more to do, sometimes without support because it's just on you to do it. But also, them taxes come out more heavier when you're. That's what they don't tell you, because people are like, "I could make 100,000." I said, and you know how much percentage of that is going to Uncle Sam? So now, making $100,000 on your own, or making $100,000 at your place of employment, you're actually going to make more at your place of employment than on your own as an entrepreneur. There's going to be less taxes. Now, and you get, right, guys, I was just going to say, and you're going to get benefits.
Myra, do you recommend that people start their own businesses? Do you recommend that people start?
I usually don't, actually.
Okay.
And it was so funny. Well, because I think sometimes people think like I'm trying to hate, because they're like, oh, but I'm like, okay, also, there's some people where I'm like, they'll be just fine because, maybe they're married and their spouse makes all the benefits or makes all the money and, all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They could probably do it. But for other people, I'm like, look, you got this going on, this going on, this going on. You trying to do A, B, and C, and this does not match what you're telling me what you want to do.
Yeah.
So you have to look at where you're at in life too. Like, what are your responsibilities right now? There was times we were taking out of our personal money to make the business operate.
Yeah.
There was times where I was like, I'm not going to get paid this payroll. Okay. So you have to weigh all those things.
Yeah.
You have to put it in perspective for your own individual life.
Do you think that we in our culture have unrealistic expectations of entrepreneurship and running a business?
Yes. I think people go into it because sometimes they have a good idea.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's a great idea, or sometimes they're good at something, and they're like, I can just do this on my own. But they're not thinking of an actual business. And I think you said it earlier. It's like, do you really want to run the business, or do you just like doing this one certain thing?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, doing therapy is actually really easy. I feel like it's a healthy challenge, but I'm more challenged working with employees.
Yeah.
And working with all of the red tape of running a clinic. I do love it, but it is more challenging. And if I didn't like it, there's no way we would be where we are today.
If I didn't like
it, if I didn't like the business side of things.
What were some things that were just completely unexpected?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that was unexpected is the growth. I didn't realize that we'd be where we are.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I would buy a commercial building. Like, that's huge that I can say I own a whole building. It's still one of those pinch myself moments.
Yeah.
That was totally unexpected. I would say also letting some people go, right? I didn't know, kind of like having to fire someone or fire a whole team was kind of in me to do. It is a different part of leadership that I don't think we talk a lot about.
Yeah.
I really like more the other types of conversation around, like, how can you be a better leader, and how can you bring teams together, and how can we, work with difficult people or difficult situations. And I'm always trying to problem solve that. So I think the unexpected is, what do you do when you've done all those things and you just got to go in and let someone go?
Yeah.
Be the bad guy, be that villain. That was very unexpected.
How do how do you do that? Like how? Like how do you be the villain in someone's story?
I think you kind of have to. I overthink. So this is what Myra does. This may not work for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think about what are the costs if I don't do that, right? If I don't have to
Real.
be the bad guy, right? What are the costs if I don't step in? And sometimes being the bad guy isn't always letting someone go. Sometimes it's even sitting down and coaching someone or telling someone that, there's a warning. We're going to coach you. Here's an improvement plan, right? For some people, that's even being a villain.
Fair.
However, what's the cost if you don't do that? What's the cost to company culture, to company finance? Will other people lose their job if you don't make that move or that decision? So I think those are the things that I really have to look at before I make a decision. If that decision is telling me you have to go ahead and do that tough thing that nobody else wants to do and be that bad guy, I know I can sleep at night because I know I have thought about this in every type of way, and I know that this is the decision I have to make. So if I am firing someone or doing something like that, know that I have thought about it in every way, and that's usually the best decision.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that being the bad guy and making those extremely hard choices is a big part of leading a team.
Absolutely.
Sounds like what you're saying is really more of a question. It sounds like what you're saying is that, employees don't often see what you see, and might not understand the decisions that you have to make, but they're still being made. So I guess with all that being said, I feel like it would be a good spot to, maybe end on this is, so then who should run a business? Like who should be starting a business right now in our gigging culture, our gigging economy? Who should be trying to make the transition from employee to freelancer, and who should be making the decision to go from freelancer to CEO?
Wow. I don't even know how to answer that because there's just so many different layers to it, right? Because some people want to start a business and it's just them and it's fine. And they don't want to scale up. They just want the business just to be them.
Yeah.
And they do it all and they love it and they're at harmony with it.
Yeah.
And financially, maybe that works for them, right? Yeah. And, you want to weigh out benefits. You want to weigh out taxes, all those kind of things you want to consider. So it's not that there is like a certain type or a prototype of a person. I think it has to do with lifestyle, happiness, balance, creativity.
Yeah.
I just think you can't force some things. Some things do have to be natural. You can't force leadership. If you're not a leader, you're just not a leader. That's nothing wrong with that. I know plenty of people who have a great amount of happiness and love for their lives. And they might work for a plumbing company. And you know what? They might make actually the same amount of money I make that I take home. They may not make what my business made. Their business that they work for might make more or the same, but they might take home just what I take home.
Yeah.
And you know what? When they go on call, it's time and a half if they choose to work on a weekend. For me, being a business owner, I don't get paid any different if I work on a weekend,
work at 4 a.m.
weekday, right? So you have to weigh all of that out and look at your life. What kind of lifestyle do you want? And how can you make that happen? Sometimes, yes, it is with running a business, and sometimes running a business is not the answer.
Yeah.
Falling in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Like what if it doesn't work? What if you fail? And that happens a lot in business. Like, it's actually really normal. Or like, who should, start a business? I'm thinking about the leadership part.
Yeah.
Not to get too spiritual. And you probably could break it down more than
podcast, so I think you can get as spiritual as you want.
But I think you could probably break it down better than I could. But I think about Peter taking that step out of the boat.
Yep.
And sometimes that's what leadership is.
Yeah.
It's taking that step out when no one else does. And I think, you have to have the humility to lead, but also you have to be a little bit fearless and a little bit like, I'm going to go out here and do this thing.
Yeah.
So you got to have a mixture of both.
Yeah.
To lead.
And I love that because it complements really nice with the beginning of the conversation where you started and your business was growing because of how much you loved everyone and you cared for them and you made them feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's just as much as making people feel safe, but also in that same breath, having to also be the person that sometimes has to make the hard decisions,
right.
To make progress, to move to the next step.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Making Progress with Myra Reneé. This podcast was produced by Clientele Creative Studios. Learn more about the podcast and our host at myrareneé.com. Join us next time, everywhere podcasts can be heard.